Well, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing all right. But before we do, though, I want to make sure I take a second because it's going to be fun as the team kind of comes out and I get to drop in and I get to talk a little bit. This is one of those rare times I actually get to drop in before we do an AMA. But I want to talk about kind of, Chris and I have had a chance to work together on a bunch of stuff. And it's been kind of amazing over the years, the places we've crossed over and how we've crossed over. But I wanted to say, like, one of the things I was most excited about bringing Chris on board is, as you kind of alluded earlier, that weird thing of being someone who has an artistic design side, but also the comp sci background and also platform. And I think as we kind of meet everybody, the leadership across the board, it's hard to find people who look at things as both the whole and its parts. Well, a platform is not a thing. It's a million pieces. There are people who focus on the pieces, people who focus on the one thing, but it's not that. Instead, it's all of it. And having gone down the road with Chris quite far on building one of these things, I'm really glad to have him leading the charge on that side of it, for sure. It's going to be nice for me to be able to relax a little bit and let someone who I know is incredibly competent. We get to the AMA now because I want to talk about the white paper and I want Chris to be here while we do it.
If I die during a tournament, do I lose my character and all NFTs attached to it? Then will I need to create a new one and grind from zero?
Yes.
There you go. Yes. Moving on. Do you want to say anything else about it, or are you done?
No, I mean, there are layers. So again, if you have other NFTs we're not going to like burn your whole wallet. That's not the idea here. So if you have other shit, like that's fine. If you have your fluff in your wallet and it gives you a fucking bunny hat, like we're not going to destroy your, like this isn't the setup, but the things you earn as that character, the achievements, the overtime, the growth. If John Elway were to be incinerated because he failed the Super Bowl, he doesn't then get to like wear that outfit the next year or have the game ball. Like that's the idea, is we want to make sure that these things are finite, that there's closure, and that the champions are the ones who come out of it. Other shit's going to live. We're not going to melt your entire bank account. Like we're not doing anything insane in that direction. We're doing insane other shit. But that season, that you or multiple seasons, if you don't compete, that character continues on. Like this stuff doesn't end. It's not like at that season, it's like a save point. It's not. Real life doesn't have a fucking save point. So it's that's the setup. That's how I'd put it. Chris, is that fair?
That's perfect.
Will a new season start after each tournament?
Yes. Well, yeah.
Yes, after every Perils tournament.
Yeah.
So any final permadeath tournament, yes, the season will restart after that. Multiple tournaments can happen during the year, during a season, but any Perils final tournament, that's when a season is ending.
Yeah, and I would go a step further to say how I define season for any of this is I just take straight from sports. So a new season of baseball doesn't start immediately after the World Series or immediately after the Super Bowl. Technically it does. Like that's the new season. The new season begins then and people are practicing. You get spring break, you get spring training, you get a setup, and then you move through the summer, you do exhibition matches, and then the real season starts leading to playoffs. All of that is what we consider the season. There's going to be like some more stuff in between, but that's kind of the setup. Is it's basically new season, new time, off you go, new stats. Starts from right after that.
All right, this one gets a little long because they're quoting first from the white paper. This is a quote from the white paper. Tickets can be made free for citizens, but in this case, they are subsidized by the developer who pays for them out of their game purse. Here's the question. If they are free but limited, do the aspects still have priority to get them? Who do the citizens represent in this statement?
Citizens are aspects. This is the reason we released the white paper in pieces, because each piece, you have to go back a little bit and try to understand every single block as we go. When the whole thing's out, you're going to be able to sort of web in. We're going to have a glossary and all that shit. But like a citizen is a person who has an aspect. They're one of the inner circle. They're ones of the people who go in first. Chris, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, so they're the ones that will be able to purchase those free tickets. So the price for those tickets will be $0 in that case, but they're the ones that will have first access to be able to become an agent and pick an athlete to go into that tournament for them.
Yeah, we're trying to do as much with edge cases and build the systems instead of saying it's always this. If we didn't have free tickets, as an example, that means that who sets the prices and how does it work? Well, the developer sets the prices. That's how it works. They set sort of where this is at, what the prize pool needs to be, but there's filtering that's done by the DAO in order to have entirely free. And there may be reasons for that. Like we had a handful of fun use cases we thought of for free tickets, but we want to enable developers to do whatever the fuck they want. So if they have some silly, insane game that, oh, it's a beta for our new one and it's a game no one's ever played, why not? Do you want to try it? No one's going to spend $10,000 a ticket for a game that no one's ever heard of. But we want to enable as much activity and choices as possible for even game developers on the platform.
What properties does NOR build into the economy to ensure that Aspect's priority is not circumvented by enterprising people?
So the easy answer is all purchases the first time out are sold from the DAO via the internal auction system in the order of the aspects. I'm not sure how someone could get around that. Like quite literally, they would have to own aspects to do that.
Yeah, there's no way around it. The only way to purchase those initially would be from the platform, and you have to have an aspect. So there's no way to circumvent it initially.
Oh, speaking of aspects, I just want to mention this because in our last, I guess it was in your Meet the Team episode, Brooks, that you were negotiating with the dude who stole your aspect. And we wanted to let people know that you got it back.
I did. I ended up getting him down to 5 ETH because of, and I have to be honest, thank you all to the community for not buying it because he was selling it on, I don't know, X, Y, some other like third party OpenSea type thing that I learned about through this for very cheap. And thank all of you for not buying it. So that way it forced him to sell it at the price I offered. I really am. It's nice to be back. I was so depressed. It actually depressed me. I try not to let people know, but it was like, fucking my own project. God damn it.
Yeah, and
So
I want to give
now it's in a cold wallet far fucking away from the goddamn internet.
what contributes to the stadium's fate holding? Is that the purse?
Yes. Also on top of it, all the other transactions around that. Think of it as what we're trying to do is abstract the way that a natural economy works around any stadium. So if you talk about any pro stadium, go take a look. I grew up in Denver, so I was fortunate to have the Broncos and the Avs, who did exceptionally well in a series of years.
Can we say those fortunate? Really? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I still the Avs. I got the Avs. It's like one of the greatest hockey teams that ever existed. Like it's kind of extraordinary to be able to have watched them as much as I did, but also take part in riots. The other side of that though is they don't make just like $20 off of winning. There are network effects that happen as you do well, and this is true of like the Kings when they went through, and like anytime someone wins a championship, it's not just a prize pot. Like there's a prize pot for the Super Bowl. Does anyone give a shit? That's not what pays for people to go to Disneyland. There's a lot more to it. So how do we handle that? Well, for us, the stadiums, and we'll be getting into this as we go on, as we talk about our land and token and a lot of things that are coming later in the paper. The nature of how sort of all these things come together is we want to utilize that network effect to drive that value and to drive those decisions for the developer, and all of the things that happen around a stadium or around a game in this case, which is really what it is. Those are the things that sort of fill that out. Is that a fair way? The purse is part of that. And I mean, technically all of that is ultimately the purse, but it comes from more than just tickets. It's royalties on those tickets. It's all kinds of things that go in and sort of fill those coffers in order to make sure that the players make the money that they need to, and the metagamers know exactly how much they're willing to spend and put towards a player getting better. I'm monopolizing this, by the way, Chris. Feel free to jump in. I just sort of used to this at this point of like,
monopolize all the conversations.
I know, I talk. It's my thing. I talk's
I think
good.
that's why you married a girl who's relatively quiet.
It's fair. It said you're also the only person who would ever say that. No, it's the setup for us, and it's complicated as we kind of get through there. And it's again, when we talk about it, and it's the reason I was happy to sort of jump in at the end of Chris's setup. When we're sitting there and we're talking and we're putting together, how does this thing operate? We're not saying, cool, what does an aspect do? It's like we're mapping that out, but then we're talking about all of the knock-on effects it possibly can have and all of the edge cases, like building the systems. I was having a discussion with someone about how video games are made, and they didn't understand this. And because a lot of people, and this is a person who's getting into Web3, a lot of people in Web3 see finished video games and they presume that what someone ends up with is like a world with a big building in it. Like there's a model of an apartment building in a video game. And that's just not true. I would say there's like maybe the ones you can't walk in or touch, but even that I would say has gone away. The reality is we're in a place where video games are effectively big, gigantic, empty tunnels that a level designer goes in and says, I want this to be here, this to be here. Here's the emotion I want here. Here's this tight corridor here, and all of these pieces. And then an environment artist goes in and paints it with objects and all kinds of stuff. So you don't end up at any point with one model or one level. There's no such thing. We call it that, but that's because that's what's created. The process is a million little pieces. And the way we're building the platform is that way. We're building the system that enables random emergent behavior. And the deal for us is about building that complexity that can allow secondary emergent behaviors that we don't plan for, but that can't take advantage of the system overall. To the earlier question, it's the reason that we're hardcore about, the aspects being those first people. This isn't hey, we're going to have it on an auction, and if you want to come by, it's like, no, it's the 9 get to go first. If they choose to grab one, they get to buy one. And then the 81, then the 729. And if you miss your chance, fuck off. Like this is the way it goes. And like that's it. Because the whole point is you are playing the metagame. We are not just doing some sort of random token that's going out there that you might make $20 of because of this or that. We want people who like to flip it. We have those in our community. I love when they're very honest about that. People who want to flip that and make quick profits, we want that system. But you need to be at it, and you need to be there, and you need to own it, and you need to be running that shit like it's a business. And the person who wants to be there because they want the token to use it, because they want to build up relationship, build a team, and have this entire thing, we want that too. And those people can play together if we design it right. But we have to think about the eventualities. And this is why having all these people who do these things are just the best part.
Can an athlete hold multiple tickets from multiple residents?
No.
No.
All right.
No. Citizens. Citizens.
Well,
Citizens.
Yeah, citizens. But they cannot hold multiple tickets to multiple different tournaments at a time. So once they're selected for a tournament, they're off the board. So because you are putting your resident NFT on the line, so you're not available to participate. It's almost like I'm choosing to participate in the Stanley Cup. You can't play in another tournament at the same time. You can't play in the Super Bowl that same day. You can't be in two places at once, type of thing.
Yeah. Boxers don't do anything the day before the heavyweight match for a reason.
How does the athlete selection phase of the ticketing process proceed? Is there a draft held with specific order of selection, maybe partially based on the ticket holder's aspect? Or is it a free-for-all as soon as the tickets are made available?
That's developer and game dependent. I mean, it's going to have to be, because if the game, and again, I'm not saying we have any of these Fortnites on the platform, that process cannot be the same as if we have John Madden football on our platform. The nature of how these tournaments work, is it a round robin? Is it a free-for-all tournament? These things, we are building the systems to enable developers to do that, and with those choices, the rest falls out. generally speaking, it is going to be leaning more towards the open-ended, everyone, here are the players, off you go. But the tools are there to enable developers to be a little bit more persnickety, or I think the ideal situation for us is that we get big enough that naturally the type of draft situation just emerges, because it would, as people have players who are continuous winners or have contracts with them that they're able to maintain, or teams that they're able to stable. That kind of setup over time sort of lends itself naturally to that play.
But to follow up, so to give a little bit more details to the question was that, yes, so citizens with a second aspect will be able to select athletes first. And then the third aspect will select their athletes, and the fourth. And they're the ones that have the access to purchase them first. So they're the ones that are going to be able to select those top athletes. So if you want to be an agent for the top athlete of a specific game, you kind of want to make sure you get a hold of a second aspect. You want to be one of the first to be able to become that agent. So that's kind of the reason why we have this system, so we can have that natural kind of draft system, making sure that if you want to be up there and you want to play that meta game, you have that opportunity to do so. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of players and a lot of tournaments with a lot of games on the platform, so everyone will have some opportunities to be able to become the agent to some of the top players and athletes on the platform.
Is there any down period in between when tickets become available for sale and when contract offers can begin to be made?
That's like all of these things. We're building the tools. We are not going to demand it. I can say for our own games, the intention is to have a little bit of a small downtime so people can organize and there can be that level of it. But if someone wants to build their game and their style and their community is based around this suddenness and like, hey, we're dropping the tickets. The games are in 2 days. Find your, like, I'm not going to stop that. Like, I want developers to have the tools and do their thing. The DAO controls as much as it does, but we don't want to stranglehold what might be more efficiency or more interesting or weird shit that can really drive some really fun stuff, especially when we start talking about some of the other types of games that we're doing in types of tournaments, which is coming a little bit later. There's a lot of fun to be had, I think.
Here's a question from the YouTube audience. Are you planning to use a third-party economy design simulator? Wow, hold on. This is a lot of words, Tom. Sorry.
Oh, no. The machinations. There's a lot of tools out there that allow us to sort of simulate, test, see how the economy will work, up and down stuff. I've used Loop for the simpler. Loop's a really amazing tool. Very nice ways to visualize very simplistic economies. The intention is to use all the tools at our disposal, and that includes actually building mini games and smaller games that we're able to simulate and run out. It's one of the fun parts about what we do is we have a lot of people who've done these kinds of games before. We have friends at major strategy game firms and designers there who've done these ad nauseum, and so they already kind of know a lot of these answers, and they also kind of have the tools for us. So it's going to be really, internally it's going to be a blast. I don't think we're going to end up sharing most of those, because I think, why would we share you this? Well, maybe we'll share the stuff that failed, I think, down the road. But I think at first I'm hesitant to show stuff where we learned that we were doing the wrong thing.
I think this is a good time to remind people that NOR is the platform. We haven't announced the name of the first game that we're doing, but we're talking about it, but we haven't announced the name. Will there be a way to facilitate crowd funds, sponsor and investors staking or fronting the costs of tickets? For example, if I wanted to pool with some friends.
So the answer is yeah. Are we building explicit tools to allow that? No. We're not. That's not in the plans currently. But I don't want to jump too far ahead. As people form alliances, as people form groups and corporation-type entities that are building these things, that are running teams that are doing this, that's where I see, instead of talking about buying fractionalized NFTs, which it kind of drives me nuts as a thing, I'd rather have the conversation around multiple people genuinely having a common business interest towards the use of that NFT rather than just the ownership and praying for passive value. And so that's what we're building. That multiple people doing a thing will be emergent of that. And those tools at some point, we may have to build those. I'm presuming someone else probably will beat us to it, which is fine. Again, the whole point of this is that it's a decentralized system. Go have fun. So yes, not explicitly from what we're doing. Is that fair, Chris? All right.
Yeah, we're not going to build it ourselves. I think if someone wants to build a system that allows you to do it,
I think
love that. We want an active community, and we want people to participate in any way they can. But we also want to make sure these tournaments and these tickets are accessible to all the metagamers as well. And I think that's going to come down to the developers and that community itself to make sure that everyone has access to stuff.
And I'll take a look at Axie, and I know sometimes I should on parts of Axie, but it's not the whole project by any means. The stuff Axie did, but as an example, they didn't build the scholarship program into the original idea. That was never a thing they did. But they built tools that enabled the fan base and the people who were really into it to figure out ways to use those tools to go forward. And then they jumped on board and then they integrated. That's like class A fucking top level development shit. Like that's why they're the success that they are, because they understand you have to build the systems, you allow people to do it, and then you grab the stuff that's successful, you ingest it, bring it in the system, and enable even further crazier shit later. And this is, I think, for us, the big deal, building that base system, ensuring that it has that fairness, that equalness, that everyone's incentivized in the same direction, and then watching what happens.
Moving on, does ticket burned / athlete opts out lead to permadeath in the action tree? Or is there another bite at the apple for recruitment of a new athlete?
I'll take this one. So I think that's two separate questions. I think the ticket burned, that is when someone fails to compete in a tournament or they die in a perilous tournament. Those are the only times your NFT is burned. So if you just don't show up to a tournament that you've kind of contracted with an agent with, we're going to burn your NFT. You're dead. That's it. It's just like you died in the competition. Or you died
the
in
original way I think
itself.
I pitched it was that the ticket is one of those explosive collars from those sci-fi movies that once it's on, only one way it's coming off.
It made me think of Hunger Games.
But
yeah, it's a little bit, just a little.
A little bit. And then the second part of that question is the opt-out period. So if for some reason athlete can't compete, we all have lives, things happen. There is going to be a period before tickets are locked that they can opt out, and it gives them and the agent themselves an opportunity to find another athlete to participate. They will not have their NFT burned if they opt out, but they won't be able to opt out after that set time that the developer set that you can't opt out anymore. So there'll be a blackout period set by the developer saying, nope, that's when opt-outs are over. And at that point, if you don't show up, your NFT is going to be burned.
Can any game dev apply and be granted active game dev status, or is there a vetting process? If there is a vetting, who has final say? Can a citizen recommend, designate, or nominate, and how?
So it's a multiple point question. I'll start with this. The answer is yes, anybody will be able to apply to be able to become a dev. We'll have the SDK and the opportunities for that. But who gets on and the full vetting process, that's going to come down to the DAO itself. The DAO and the details of what we'll kind of lay out through the white paper shortly will be able to determine if this developer, this game is going to be on the NOR platform. But initially, the C9 team and the 9 will be able to determine that application status to make sure it's eligible to be on the platform. But when the full platform launches, it's going to come down to the DAO, because it's going to come down to what citizens want to play and what the athletes want to play. So it's like if they want this game and this studio to be on the platform because they want to see it succeed and there's enough people behind it, the DAO will vote it through.
Let's ask these last couple of questions and get everybody back to their lives. If an athlete has the option to opt out of a contract before the tournament starts, does a citizen ticket holder also have the ability to rescind a ticket that has already been contracted to an athlete?
No, it's a different reason for it. And again, this is a thing that it's not like right before the tournament. It's a thing that a day or two later, like we're not talking extended periods, and it is a grace period of undoing almost. But metagamers, we have a higher bar for. Like, that's just it. We just have a higher bar for that. The ability for someone who is in the position of power, who's financially kind of in charge of the relationship, their ability to kill a deal at any point would simply put excessive power in the hands of themselves, which is very commonly what you see in traditional sports and esports. For example, if an agent at any point or a team owner could say, hey, just letting you know, you're not playing the end of this week. You're not playing in the Super Bowl. That conversation, which they can't really do because their contract states that they have to, well, we're undoing your contract. That isn't a thing. We're adding a grace period for the players because there is a reality around someone getting hit by a car and then they can't compete. And we don't want both the metagamer and them to be punished by it. But again, these are, generally speaking, it's quick, it's limited, and it's not a thing that's going to happen like a week before the tournament. There's more than enough time for a person to sort of be able to go back to it. And they won't be able to, if they withdraw, they can't then go to someone else. Like, that's the other side, is the player's locked out. That's, you can't then, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sign this one, someone else offered me better. You're fucked. You can't compete, you can't compete. That's the setup.
How are the number of tickets made available for sale determined?
By the number of players and the number of metagamers who are interested algorithmically by the DAO. That's not no person makes that choice. The other factor would be like the type of tournament. So that, like, is it a team-based thing? Like, there's a few other things that go in there, but it's algorithmically generated. You want to do this kind of tournament, here's how many tickets come out of it. That's it.
Yep. Yeah, and the developer gets to choose that setting. They'll be able to see how many tickets will be available for that specific tournament.
Okay, so thank you both. Thank you, Chris, for letting me pick your brain about the branding stuff. I'm sure that, like I said, a lot of people will find that helpful. Brooks, always fun to... We don't have to pick your brain. We just poke you, and it just tumbles out. I've never seen you at a loss for words, so thank you. These questions today have been pretty much focused on the tournament stuff because that was the drop that we did this week on the white paper. I wanted to let people know that during the Q&A tomorrow, you're not limited to only asking questions about what was in the drop this week. We realize somebody may have just started reading the white paper and they have questions about the first drop or the second part that we released. So don't feel like you're only limited to ask questions about the latest white paper information that we released. And we'll see you tomorrow. Keep an eye out. We'll announce on our Twitter page and on our Discord what time Brooks and I will be around tomorrow to answer more white paper questions. Anything else, guys? You're welcome.
Thanks, Val. This was great.
Bye, Brooks.
See you, Val. I'm going to go yell at people on
have
Twitter
fun.
again.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.
See you guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.